"I will kill you," Damilola hissed, her words dripping with venom, "and no one will ever know what happened today." Long ago, in a village there lived two best friends named Damilola and Arike. Damilola was a kind and gentle soul. She had married a handsome and hard-working man named Kayode. Their small farm barely produced enough to feed themselves. Arike, on the other hand, was the daughter of Chief Adebayo, the wealthiest man in the village. He had sent Arike to study in a faraway land across the great ocean, hoping she would return with new ideas to help their village grow and prosper. When Arike came back home, she was even more beautiful and clever than before. Some people in the village whispered and stared, and many young men who had once dreamed of marrying her now kept their distance. Damilola, however, saw only her dear friend. She hugged Arike tightly and said, "Welcome home. I've missed you so much." One evening, as they sat by the river watching the sunset, Damilola confided in Arike about her troubles. "My dear friend," she said, her voice heavy with worry, "Kayode and I are struggling. Our farm yields little, and we can barely afford to eat. I hate to ask, but do you think your father might have work for Kayode on his big farm?" Arike's eyes lit up. "Of course. I'll speak to Papa right away." True to her word, Arike spoke to her father, and soon Kayode was working on Chief Adebayo's farm. Kayode spent more and more time at the chief's compound, often working late into the night. And Arike, who had always been kind to Kayode, found herself falling in love with her best friend's husband. At first, Arike tried to push these feelings aside. She began to find excuses to be around Kayode, bringing him cool drinks while he worked in the fields, or asking for his help with farm business long after the other workers had gone home. Kayode, for his part, but now he began to notice her beauty, her quick wit, and her kind heart. Damilola noticed the growing closeness between her husband and her best friend, but she told herself there was nothing to worry about. "And Kayode loves me. We're going to start a family soon." But starting a family wasn't as easy as Damilola had hoped. Months passed, and then years, but she didn't become pregnant. She visited the village healer, tried all sorts of herbs and remedies, but nothing worked. Kayode tried to hide his disappointment, but Damilola could see the sadness in his eyes when he watched the other men in the village playing with their children. One day, Kayode came home in a dark mood. He had been drinking palm wine with his friends, and his tongue was looser than usual. "Damilola," he said, his words slurring slightly, "I'm not getting any younger. I need a son to carry on my name. If you can't give me children, perhaps I should find a woman who can." Damilola's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She wanted to tell Kayode about her previous marriages, about how she had never been able to have children, but fear closed her throat. Instead, she watched in silence as Kayode stormed out of their hut, disappearing into the night. Desperate and afraid, Damilola ran to Arike's compound. Through her tears, she confessed everything to her friend. "Arike," she sobbed, "I've been married 3 times before Kayode. Each time my husband left me because I couldn't have children. I can't lose Kayode too. He's the love of my life." Arike held her friend, her own heart aching with a mixture of sympathy and secret hope. Then, slowly, an idea began to form in her mind. It was a terrible idea, one that went against everything she believed in, but if it worked, it might save her friend's marriage and give Arike a chance at happiness too. "Damilola," Arike said slowly, What if I could help you have a baby?" Damilola looked up, confusion written across her tear-stained face. "What do you mean?" Arike took a deep breath. "What if I spent time with Kayode, and if I became pregnant, you could pretend the baby was yours. No one would ever know." Damilola gasped, shocked by the suggestion. But as the idea sank in, a glimmer of hope appeared in her eyes. "You would do that for me?" she whispered. Arike nodded, trying to ignore the voice in her head that whispered this was wrong. "You're my best friend," she said. "I'd do anything for you." And so, a plan was set in motion that would change all their lives forever. Damilola began to hint to Kayode that Arike was lonely, that she needed more help on the farm. She encouraged him to spend time with her friend, all the while believing that she was saving her marriage. Arike, for her part, found it all too easy to grow closer to Kayode. She had loved him from afar for so long, and now she had permission to pursue him. She showered him with attention, laughing at his jokes, asking for his advice, making him feel important and valued. Kayode, caught between his loyalty to Damilola and his growing feelings for Arike, struggled with his conscience. But the more time he spent with Arike, the more he found himself drawn to her. She understood him in a way Damilola never had, challenging his ideas and inspiring him to dream bigger. As weeks turned into months, Damilola watched with growing unease as Kayode and Arike grew closer. She told herself it was all part of the plan, that soon Arike would be pregnant and everything would go back to normal. But in her heart, she knew something had changed. One evening, as the sun was setting and the crickets began their nightly chorus, Arike came to Damilola with news. "It worked," she said softly. "I'm with child." Damilola's emotions warred within her, joy at the prospect of finally having a baby, mixed with a deep, gnawing fear. Does Kayode know?" she asked. Arike nodded, unable to meet her friend's eyes. "He knows, and Damilola, he wants to marry me, as his second wife." Damilola's face contorted with rage as she confronted Arike. "No, you can't take my husband from me," she screamed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I regret ever confiding in you." Her voice trembled with a mix of anger and betrayal. But Arike, tasting the happiness she had longed for, couldn't bring herself to give it up. "I'm sorry, Damilola," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I love him, and he loves me. Please, please try to understand." Blinded by fury, Damilola lunged forward, pushing Arike forcefully against the wall. The impact was sudden and violent. Arike's eyes widened in shock and pain as she felt the hard surface against her back. "I will kill you," Damilola hissed, her words dripping with venom. "And no one will ever know what happened today." Arike, overwhelmed by fear and the force of the impact, let out a piercing scream before her body went limp, collapsing to the floor. The world seemed to tilt beneath Damilola's feet. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Kayode was supposed to believe the baby was hers. They were supposed to be a happy family. Instead, she had pushed her husband into the arms of another woman, her best friend. Kayode stepped into the house, his eyes widening at the horrifying scene. Damilola stood with a knife, advancing toward Arike. Seeing Kayode, Damilola dropped to her knees, frantically apologizing. Without hesitation, Kayode scooped up Arike and rushed her to the hospital. The journey felt endless, his heart pounding with fear and uncertainty. At the hospital, the doctor's words hit Kayode like a hammer. One of the twins Arike was carrying had not survived. The news worsened as the doctor explained that Arike had lost her memory. Damilola sank to the ground, her body racked with sobs. She had tried to hold on to her marriage through trickery and deceit, and now she was losing everything: her husband, her best friend, and the child she had so desperately wanted. Kayode, torn between his love for Arike and his loyalty to Damilola, struggled to find a way forward. He wanted to be a good man, a man of honor, but he couldn't deny the love he felt for Arike and the excitement of becoming a father. Arike. She had won the man she loved, but at the cost of her dearest friendship, and Damilola, heartbroken and alone, was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. She had lost everything in her attempt to hold on to a lie. Remember, they would say, a house built on lies will always crumble. True love and true friendship can only thrive in the light of truth. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of our tale. In matters of the heart, honesty, though sometimes painful, is always the best policy.